Okay, so we all know that playing card games can be a very expensive hobby.
I don't know what you're talking about. What's that sound? That's not my wallet crying.
Yeah, it's a lot to play card games, at least, in any serious capacity, whether that's like casual, competitive, whatever.
Cardboard costs.
Yeah, I think especially, we're Yu-Gi-Oh players primarily, so we've had a lot of experience with, expensive cards, expensive decks. Something that I wanted to talk about today, though, is like why exactly these cards cost what they cost. Like, why is it so expensive to play these games? Like, what are the factors that go into it? And I figured we could just talk about it and maybe like share our testimonials on money spent on Yu-Gi-Oh.
But before we get yapping, I kind of want to know, and you can put it in the comments, how much have you spent? Like, what's the most you've spent on a Yu-Gi-Oh card?
For me, I think the most I spent on cards, like just outright buying singles, that is. I think I bought Dragonic Diagram when it was big in
I remember
2017. I think
Yep.
I bought like a playset of that. They were like $80 each, and I think I spent like basically 240, 250. Or maybe it was Ash Blossom. Those both I think came in the same set. And I just remember paying a lot for a secret rare copy, but you had to have it. And I was
Yeah.
playing like True Drago at the time, the whole thing. So yeah, I think that's the most that I've spent like at once on a card. What about you?
It's funny, I think I probably did the same thing around the same time. Now I think about it, it's probably toss format where I spent the most on a card because I built a Thunder Dragon deck
Yeah.
and I let no price be a barrier to me. So I do not remember how much my Thunder Dragon Colossuses cost me, but I did not wait for a reprint.
Yeah, I remember they were secrets, I think. So it probably was right up in that 60 or more dollar range.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always just find myself thinking why are these cards as expensive as they are? And so we have a little bit of an outline that we'll use, and we're gonna go through it. And before we get into it, we'd appreciate it if you thumbs up the video.
Yeah.
Give it a like, subscribe also if you enjoy these lengthy Yu-Gi-Oh discussions.
Yeah, because I saw in our data that only like 86% of you are subscribed. I'm sorry, I keep trying to copy that thing that
Yeah, every
YouTubers do.
YouTuber is like, 99% of you aren't subscribed, please subscribe.
But no one's actually done the research to know the actual number.
Today's video is sponsored by Plank. If you're like me and you struggle to find a mattress that's actually firm and comfortable enough, this is the answer. I've been using their Luxe mattress for the last couple weeks, and it's been an absolute game changer. When I'm looking for a new mattress, the most important thing for me is just support. I can't stand that feeling of sinking too deep into a bed. It just isn't comfortable for a full night's sleep. Then you wake up with all those aches and pains in the morning, and it's just the worst. But the Plank mattress finally helped me with that. It's firm and even reversible too. I just found myself falling asleep so much faster and waking up feeling so much better. Now that I think about it, it shouldn't really be a surprise considering Plank is actually endorsed by the American Chiropractic Association. There's actually two models as well, the Plank Firm and the Plank Firm Luxe. I got the Firm Luxe because it contours more to your body, so it's a little more plush, but the regular Firm is perfectly, well, firm. One more really nice part is that these are designed, assembled, and shipped directly from their factory in Arizona. So by cutting out the middleman, they're actually able to use premium materials while still keeping the price reasonable for all of us. Honestly, I didn't think getting a mattress online would be so easy. And Plank ships for free anywhere in the United States. They offer a 120-night sleep trial along with a limited lifetime warranty. You can even use your health savings account or your flexible spending account to buy one. I've been loving my Plank mattress, and I think a lot of you would too. So if you're looking for an ultra firm bed, check out plankmattress.com. You can click on the link below and get 30% off your order with the code TEAMAPS, or just use the QR code here on screen. Oh, and after you check them out, you can support my channel by telling them I sent you in the post-purchase survey. Thanks again to Plank for sponsoring today's video. Up front, we're mostly going to be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! I feel like most of these principles apply to every card game in varying capacities. And also, we're not going to be talking about speculative kind of vintage market type stuff. Yeah. So none of Logan Paul's Pikachu or some old Shadowless Charizard, old, what is the magic card? The Lotus card?
Oh, the Black
Lotus or whatever. We're not really talking about old stuff like that. We're talking about, an ongoing card game. It's just new sets have expensive cards and you need them to
because Magic and Pokemon are not ongoing to us.
Well, no, I mean, I think that a lot of this applies, but So I think that you can break this down into basically 5 or so categories. The last one just sort of being a miscellaneous thing. I think that the biggest one is honestly just how playable a card is.
Oh, for sure.
Is it meta relevant? I know with Yu-Gi-Oh, this is like big. In fact, with Yu-Gi-Oh, this is like almost the overarching feature that defines a card's price.
It's weird. So Yu-Gi-Oh used to have like almost no collector interest when it came to card prices.
Yeah.
And so our cards were completely dictated by their playability. And I know that because the most expensive card I own currently is an Ultimate Rare Ancient Gear Golem.
Yeah.
And I picked it up for the low. And I mean for the low back in 2013, 2014 sometime.
Yeah.
And it's because it wasn't relevant. Nobody was playing it. And the card ballooned in price once people were like, oh, that card's actually kind of rare.
Yeah, it's interesting in Yu-Gi-Oh! I guess it's a tangent, sort of, but I think it's sort of relevant. Is like, when I think of a card like Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Rare, generally, like, it'll have, like, you know, some perceived value. And then its value comes from, like, oh, Ancient Gear is getting support, right?
Right.
And sometime years in the future. And then you want to have, like, one copy of the old card that you have to run. Like how in a Blue Eyes deck or a Dark Magician deck, you still have to kind of run the vanilla copy of the card just for their support to
And
work.
if you're only gonna have one, you might as well get the highest rarity
Yeah,
you
and
can.
usually like it'll be like, oh, you only need maybe one or two as like a bit of a brick. And so like that's usually when those cards will sort of increase in price.
Yeah.
So meta relevance, I think there's like sort of two ways a card can be meta relevant, and they're similar. The first I think is if it's a staple. Like if it's like just a card that everybody needs to have, 4 of if you're playing most card games, 3 of if you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh. I feel like that's kind of the number one indicator. I think in Yu-Gi-Oh, my mind usually kind of goes to like pot cards, right? Like, you know, pot of this, pot of that.
I mean, there's also the hand trap of the week.
Hand traps, yeah. I remember Ash Blossom when it first came out,
Crazy.
80, 90 bucks. I think it got as high as like 120, 130 maybe.
I remember it took me forever to get a set of Ash Blossoms. I remember I got 2 and I called it quits for a long time.
Yeah, and it's rough too because with staples, you oftentimes need the maximum amount of the card too.
Yeah.
So it isn't
because
just
that's
a
kind
matter
of the point.
Yeah, so it isn't even just a matter of like, oh, I can kind of get away with one. That sort of works with extra deck cards, like, you know, your SP Little Knight or your maybe like Apollosa. Maybe, you know, you only need 1, but like if it's like a pot card, you probably just have to be running 3, as long as it's at 3. So there's that, and then I think that the second one is like engine cards, which can sort of look like staples, but usually it's like, you know, the engine that is like the best deck of the current day.
Oh man, remember it's escaping me. Not Brave, but...
Yeah, the adventure tokens.
Yes, the adventure engine.
Yeah, that's like an example of like, you have to kind of have the whole engine, and the whole engine means having, was it Water Enchantress?
Water Enchantress.
Rite of Aramesir, I know those were the 2.
And then while that engine was hot, those cards were expensive.
Yeah, I think some other really notable examples is like, there's always usually like a single spell. Like Nadir's Servant when it first came out, when a lot of decks were running that, like just Nadir Servant with Ecclesia with Punishment type of engine.
I've started calling those just packages.
Yeah, a little
Especially
package.
when it's like only like one card gives you a free of another card. I was thinking of it as a package.
Yeah, these little +1 spells. Sky Striker Engage, I think
Yep.
was a big one. If you wanted to run that engine, Engage was like critical to it. So much so that even if all the other cards were very low rarity, or like very easy to get, none of it functioned without Engage. So, you know, Engage, I remember was like $100 at a time. Seeker of Sinful Spoils, Wanted.
Yeah.
Kind of a more recent example. I think that kind of feels like it's, you know, you could run Diabellstar and like stuff, but like you really just needed to have this because like it not only searched her, but then also like it kind of helped recycle things. And so it was, they put a lot into a single spell.
Agreed, yeah.
And that'll usually be it. And there are old examples too, actually. I remember when I first got into the game, Emergency Teleport actually was my first exposure to a card like that.
I mean, well, it was probably a lot of people's first because E-Telly was, I want to say, the first of its kind, right?
Yeah, it was kind of the first time I think that there was a spell that just summoned something from deck like that.
At the time, I remember the idea was if you had E-Telly, you just run it. You cram in a Psychic so you could just run E-Telly. It was just...
Yeah, it was good. Early 5Ds, and like, it's funny because, you know, Krebons and Psychic Commander, you could run them as your deck's tuners, but without E-Telly, they were just regular monsters, sort of, for the most part.
Likely just to get run over.
But suddenly when you had like Emergency Teleport, everything came together, because now it's like you can just access them just like that, and do synchros, and like it's a whole thing. Like, if you didn't have E-Telly, it almost wasn't worth running them. Like, I mean, you could, but you know what I mean? Like, But then like ETLA itself costs like, when I was playing like 50, 60 bucks, I think it was even more kind of for at different periods of time. So
and remember, we're card gamers. When you sit across from someone, there's only one goal, it's to win. I mean, some might argue having fun's a thing, but you know what's the most fun? Winning. And so having the best tools at the time to win, you kind of can't put a price on it, and then people did, and that price was kind of high.
the second thing that I came up with was basically, I think there's like engineered scarcity, which is sort of like, this is the scarcity that is like the company itself builds into the cards. So yeah, like it's built into the product. It's intended to make it scarce. There's like a one later I'm going to talk about, which is like, I guess, more like or kind of other people's scarcity that they like put into the equation. But like this is like how, you know, cards have chase rarities, right? Like there's like a rarity distribution in a set.
You know, Starlight rares, quarter century rares, that's just engineered scarcity. These cards sometimes don't have value outside of just being scarce.
Yeah, I mean, actually I was even gonna say, this is really, because what I was really focusing on is just how like, even before you get into those like premium rarities, there's just a baseline like common, rare, super, ultra, secret. Like, even before you get into like even like the crazy rarities, it's just like these 5 rarities. A card that is common is going to show up a lot, more than a card that is rare, more than a card that is super, more than a card that is ultra, and like so on and so forth. So just by printing a card in like ultra rarity, Konami is choosing to say like there's just going to be fewer of this. It's just this card is going to be harder to get than a super is, and like so on and so forth.
It's like, and that's such a natural. So I don't even think about that normally because that's such, to me, it's such a natural order of how card games work.
Yep.
That like tiering of product.
We're used to it.
This idea of the less you see it, the more value it has, which once again, a certain company has told us to not ever make it sound like one card could be worth more than another, which is silly.
It's interesting. I mean, like, I think that they want, like, as far as marketing is concerned, I guess like these companies would want you to think that every card is kind of just the same and they're all like equally playable and they're all, because they're not, like, they're very clear that like an ultra rare is going to be seen less than a common.
Yes.
That's something that's just like, that's on the packaging. But what they don't want you to think is that like any single ultra is better or worse than any other ultra.
Because there's engineered scarcity, and then when you add in that playability and meta relevance, then the cards really start to kind of work their way up in price and push other cards down.
Yeah, like it's not a mistake that the most playable card also tends to be an ultra or a secret in most sets.
Honestly, in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh, there aren't too many examples of like very low rarity cards becoming meta relevant outside of like the beginning of the game. I think when the game first came out, there were more examples.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that when the game first came out, they almost didn't even intend for like it to be as, like when I look at LOB, I know I use that example a lot. You know, Pot of Greed was like a rare or something in that.
What a great rare.
And even like, you know, just early on in general, stuff like Heavy Storm was only like a super rare. So I think that they were kind of more like, they thought that the ultras people would want would be like just Blue Eyes White Dragon, like Dark Magician, like,
and that's true.
They're
not wrong for some type of people.
But yeah, so early on, like you could kind of get those staple spells and traps, like Trap Hole was like a super. Today though, I think that there's a lot more awareness from most companies and certainly from Konami that like, if you need it, if the players are gonna want to play with it anyway, and they're gonna like need it to be competitive, then we might as well like kind of
a higher rarity so that they have to open up more packs, more boxes, more cases.
I mean, there's some examples too of like when a card is on the lower end of rarity and like because it's so playable, it ends up having a price almost akin to what like a super and ultra might.
What's the most modern example you can think of?
I think right now a lot of people would probably point to maybe like Bestial Drua's Worm was like a...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bestial Drua's Worm, I think, was a super rare in Darkwing Blast, I believe was the set. And, like, this is, you know, at the time when, like, supers, you get a super in every pack now. There's a while in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where that wasn't the case. But, so, like, most supers in most sets nowadays are, like, worth $1.2 at most.
It feels like supers became so much worse.
Yeah, they really, I think they have. But like, I remember Drua's Worm got as high as, like, 15, maybe 20 bucks, just because like you kind of needed to have it to play like the Bestial like engine, and like it was I know some people suspected it was short printed, which that's sort of a separate thing.
That's a whole other conspiracy theory.
Another example too was Blackwing Gale. I remember that was a pretty big one when I had first gotten back into Yu-Gi-Oh, like 2009-ish. I remember Blackwing Gale was a rare, but it was a staple that anyone could use, and it was also, of course, necessary for the Blackwing
Remind
deck.
me which one's Gale. I get my Blackwings confused.
So Blackwing Gale was the one that you could special summon it from your hand if you
Oh, I meant the
controlled-
appearance. You know, I'm an artwork guy.
Oh, the green wings. And
Okay,
it's-
got it.
yeah,
I know exactly
green,
what
yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about. Okay.
1300 attack. I don't know, are you like that? Where like, I can actually remember monsters by like, if you tell me the attack points, I'll like visually remember that being on the card. And
I
that's
remember
kinda
I remember the artwork.
Okay, yeah,
Oftentimes, stats
like-
and effects, they just
Yeah, he's the
go
purple
right
and
on my
green
head.
one. He's like, woo!
I do remember that one because I played against Blackwings a lot, and
Yeah.
sometimes I get them mixed up.
He could summon himself. He could have any monster's attack
Yep.
and defense, which was honestly actually like so insane at the time. Because like when you think about like it could swing over a Stardust Dragon.
Yeah, technically,
Your
just
opponent
cut
had
it
a
in
Stardust
half.
out,
There
and
you
you just
go.
like summon Gale, cut you in half,
You're
attack over.
1250. Good luck.
Yeah, it was a really big deal. So I remember it was a rare, but like it ended up having like, it was like 10, 12 bucks for like a rare, so. And speaking of that, I do think short printing is also sort of a relevant thing here.
It's just, I've always found it so hard to talk about short printing because I don't think Konami ever acknowledged it.
Yeah, so I remember, so there's a couple of thoughts on this. Like a short printing is the idea, for those who maybe don't know, that like a card, even within its rarity class, is still printed at a lower rate than like all the other cards of its class.
Right.
So even though it's like an ultra and you're supposed to get like, you know, one ultra in every X amount of packs, it feels, maybe placebo or whatever, like this one ultra tends to just show up a little less than the other ultras. And like, you know, the companies are never going to.
No, I mean, it took enterprising players with large wallets to open up many, many boxes of given sets and just analyze how many of each copy of card they were pulling. And there were trends where this, because we started even using the phrase short print common, right?
Yeah. You know what's interesting is like, I think that this is also a result, like the conversation around short prints, I mean, they've always existed. I think people have always known that. But I think that the trend of people of like vendors posting their pulls from like multiple cases online, like that kind of accelerated that conversation where now even the average person just from scrolling around a bit on Reddit or Discord or Twitter or something will kind of get wind of the fact that there are some short prints.
Yeah, I mean, knowing pull rates became such a big part of the Yu-Gi-Oh community. Every time a set came out, people wanted to know, like, what are the pull rates? What's the distribution looking like?
Yeah.
I want to know.
Yeah.
And then YouTubers, they were quick to it. Like, oh, that's what you want?
Yeah,
All
because
right.
there's so much content now, or at a time, there's a lot of content where it's like, oh, we're opening a case of this new set. And like, so you'd see the people make the stacks of like
Yep.
secrets they pull. It's like, that's funny. Like, why is like Nadir's Servant stacked like a little shorter than the other secret stacks, you know?
And then in Konami, they never actually acknowledged that short prints were a thing. However, I don't think anyone couldn't help but notice that the short print cards tended to be like the
good
best of their
ones.
rarity.
Yeah, they tend to just kind of be the good ones. And it's like, we'll never know. Although I remember in like 2020, this was around the Eternity Code release, there was this controversy, you'll remember this, where like someone at Konami EU.
Oh, the EU
Yeah,
thing.
there's
yeah.
some EU Content Creator Day, maybe in 2020, if I'm remembering correctly. Someone else listening might remember this too, where like they, a Konami employee or somebody said like we're
Allegedly.
going to allegedly stopped like we're gonna stop short printing in mainline sets. And this came out like this was it wasn't like a press release, but like someone said it and then like it was getting shared around on all these places. And like we haven't heard anything about that since.
In fact, they were never heard from again. To admit their short printing would probably violate some type of like
Yeah, it might be
like
something like
gambling law because they print the the distribution on the box, and the idea that there might be a hidden probability within that.
For something that's, I think, okay, this is a tangent, but I think that I have a funny story. So, apparently like the Pharaoh's rare cards.
Oh yeah.
From that one set, King's Court. It might have been the only set that did it. It and like Magnificent Mavens, I think. They're the only two sets that did Pharaoh's rare. And like the Pharaoh's Rare cards were supposed to have, I think, ultra rare text titling or something.
Right.
But they made some that had like secret rare text titling, and it was technically like a different rarity, and they didn't advertise it, and so like they had to kind of like.
Didn't they just lean in?
There's some story I don't remember. Someone might know.
Is that the one where now that's why that set has ultra Pharaoh's Rare and secret Pharaoh's Rare
Yeah,
cards?
it's something like that. I kind of upset because I don't remember the full story, but yeah. So that was the thing. The long story short prints are I think that they are a part. They definitely factor in, especially when people catch wind of the fact, or at least the idea, that certain cards are short printed. So
I honestly feel like because maybe at least in Yu-Gi-Oh, because of short prints, people eventually just started buying more and more product to try and compensate for the card they need being at a lower pull rate.
I also think that there is sort of a box break economy. This is the term I generally used for it. I don't know if it's like an official.
Like how would you describe the box break economy?
It's just EV, right? Like expected value. If a box costs, let's say, $100, I know that can be different, but if it's supposed to cost $100, that's the MSRP for it, and you open it, then I guess the expected value is that like the cards that make up this box, on average, should equal about, or usually a little bit less than $100. And that's kind of how you end up with these cards where like, or these sets really, where like there's a secret rare that kind of becomes worth almost as much as the box is. Because an ideal box would have like Apollosa, or I guess like right now that's like Forbidden Crown, or like kind of the Albaz card in Burst Protocol. The expected value of a box would be like $100 or slightly less. And so with vendors and card shop owners who like buy a lot of these boxes, I think that, and this kind of gets to, I guess, the crux of where the prices come from, is like they have to price the high rarity cards in such a way that like they do equal or approach equal the value of like what a box is to buy.
That's interesting. It makes a lot of sense. I never thought that vendors might take that into account when they're trying to figure out how much to sell a card for. Because I always thought it was like, oh, it's like a free market. So really it's demand that decides how much a card is. If it's vendors deciding, that's kind of like logical, but like still price setting.
Yeah, it does feel like a little price setting. And I mean, I think that like to some degree it just, I still feel like someone kind of has to just say a price at some point. Like, because like a new set comes out, and with pre-release pricing, it's always like way higher. I think pre-release pricing is like fueled by FOMO, both pull rates and like FOMO.
Pre-release prices are so obscene.
Everything's so inflated, but like then when the set itself comes out, the prices have to settle somewhere, and I still think that like someone's kind of just saying that like this Albaz thing is worth $70, or like, you know, Forbidden Crown, we're just gonna say it's $60. You know, I don't know. But I do think that like for vendors, it's gotta at least equal what the box is worth. If it's like a high dollar secret, it's gonna usually cost around what a box is sold for.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me around when people started saying things like, "I made my money back," like when they would post their polls. They, you know, you'd open their box, tally up how much each card is like worth, like market value. And it's like, well, how much did I win? How much did I lose? You know, we had a segment like that at one point.
Yeah, it was called Larry in the Hole. But actually, that's a really good point. Is like you can even see that with players, right?
Yeah.
Like, because like on the vendor level or the card shop level, of course, this is kind of how prices are going to disseminate. But like even just on a player-to-player basis, when you do buy a box, you're kind of like, how much did I plus? Like, was this box worth it? A lot of times the answer is no, but you know.
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't felt like I made my money on a box in a while.
Yeah, and I think that that's like almost a feature, not a bug. Like I think that you're kind of supposed to just not really.
I mean, when you're technically speaking, because like, you know, I used to work in casinos, and so technically when you gamble, the majority of people are supposed to lose.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to think about buying these cards as gambling, because there are certain organizations that would, you know, that would regulate it if so.
Yeah, they prefer that you not. But like, I mean, the thing is, yeah, like with Yu-Gi-Oh! At least, certainly, I think that what you sort of see is that like players, it's sort of funny. People will get mad when they open a box and they get like 2 shitty secrets. But I guess like someone has to get the bad secrets
Yeah,
because
someone's
someone else
gotta
gets like the
lose
good
so
ones.
that someone can lose. I mean, win.
Something else I noticed with this is that usually if there's one big like secret rare chase card, it does cause the rest of the set to be cheaper by comparison.
True. And I don't think that's player behavior. I think that's probably vendor decision making.
What do you mean?
Because just because one card's expensive, why would I then say, well, now I'm not willing to pay for the rest of these cards? Like that feels more of like a price setting decision.
Yeah, I think that
when you're doing like with your expected value example.
Because I think like the preferred scenario for almost everyone involved, someone can correct me if I'm just being ignorant about this, is that a set would have like some, like they would dissipate it some. So like there'd be like 2 or 3 really good secrets to pull. Like again in Burst Protocol, it's just the most recent set as of us recording this. There's like the Albaz guy, and then there's also Forbidden Crown. And they're both pretty high dollar secrets, and that's probably preferable to there just being one high dollar secret. I remember in like 2019, as a random anecdote, people didn't like, I think the set was Rising Rampage, because Apollosa was the only, it was the set that Apollosa came out in.
Oh, I remember Rising Rampage. Yeah.
And like it was a staple or whatever, but it was like the only high dollar card, like really wanted card in the set. And so it ended up having a very high price, but like people were like, well, if there were like 3 or 4 cards in here, Apollosa wouldn't cost like 80 or 90 bucks. Maybe she'd only cost like 40 or 50, and then there'd be other secrets that are also like 30, 40, 50. So I think like players probably prefer that. And I think that even if I was like a vendor or somebody like buying packs in mass, I'd kind of like that more too, because it doesn't feel like I'm putting like all my eggs in the one basket of like, do I pull an Apollosa or not?
But if I'm a vendor that's going on like TCG Player and it's time for me to sell the cards, you know, all the cards I pulled in my case of Rising Rampage, right?
Yeah.
I look at like demand and like trends and I'd say, well, this Apollosa card is the hottest thing on the market right now, and people pretty much don't want the rest of this set. So if Apollosa is the only thing I sell from my case, I need these Apollosas to pay for the case. So I'm gonna set the price of my Apollosas to be whatever whatever the profit margin I was looking for was.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's why I think like it'd be easier to have more cards that are worth a little less than like one single secret card. I think that's like the preferred.
Yeah, that makes.
I guess it's the preferred thing. Then there's like artificial scarcity is kind of what I'm calling this next one. When people are sort of creating the scarcity, people as in like the players.
Yes.
I remember when I first heard about the term buyout. When did you first hear about like TCG Player buyouts and stuff?
Well, TCG Player buyouts I probably heard online or something. Buyouts in general is just a regular thing of life. But it had to have been somewhere in that like 2014, 15 area. When I was finally starting to pay attention to like card prices and the markets and stuff.
Yeah, it's so basically a buyout, for anyone who maybe doesn't know, is just when like people speculate that a card will be valuable in an amount of time, like in the future. Maybe 6 months from now, this card will be really good and like everybody will need it. And I think with Yu-Gi-Oh, you see that the most, basically like when support is announced for an archetype.
Right.
Because like we have that weird OCG, TCG split. So we know about cards sometimes 6 months before they come out. And if they announce like Dark Lord support or, you know, Tri-Brigade support or something, then all of those old existing kind of cards might get bought out. And so then, you know.
At least as I've seen, it's usually not all of those cards.
That's true.
It's usually people are searching for the one linchpin card that no matter what gets announced, like sometimes all we know is a new archetype's getting support, but we don't know the specific cards. So people search for the one card that needs to be run at max regardless of what gets announced, and that's the one they'll target for the buyout.
Yeah, the necessary engine piece. And you see this like with high rarity cards, but even sometimes like commons and rares. Because there are certain commons, at least like in my experience with Yu-Gi-Oh, there are sometimes like commons from sets in like 2014 and back that don't actually get reprints.
They can't reprint everything. You gotta remember, every new set is...
It's 100 cards.
100 brand new cards. And so you can't actually reprint at the rate that we introduce cards.
So it's funny because you'll find like these old cards that like they got printed once in a set that no one necessarily even cared about, or just whatever. It's been like kind of just literally rotated out of relevance. And so now suddenly this one old card that was printed this one time is going to be needed for a new engine, and so that card will get bought out. It was already probably scarce-ish, but like it gets bought out, and now it's like, it was a common, but now it's worth like $20 or something. And
I remember when they made the new Ritual Beast support, and then Konami didn't reprint. I think it was Ritual Beast the Elder.
I want to say it was the Elder.
I think it was Elder. And so some enterprising individuals scooped up the Elders that were available and relisted them at a higher price.
Now, to Konami's credit, I will say that they have lately, whenever they make new support for a deck, they will shortly after reprint a lot of the relevant cards.
Because Elder did get a reprint.
Yeah, it got a reprint pretty shortly after, like a rarity collection thing.
But it just shows how quick,
time.
like these TCG player vendor types, they're waiting. They're doing their research.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if they have whole spreadsheets speculating if this archetype gets an announcement, this is the card to target, and this is the price we want to target it at.
Which, like, just as an aside, is honestly why I don't think I could ever be a vendor. Like, I just feel like it's a lot of trouble to kind of have to go through to be like scoping out like random old common cards.
Hey, some people want to be the wolf of TCG player,
Yeah, I do wonder how much that's even worth, because I've noticed usually with buyouts, they're only temporary.
It's
like a
all
buyout
about,
will happen and it'll last for like a week maybe.
But the goal is just to like gain some or force some meager profits. You're not gonna get rich buying out a card, but the fact is you can force a situation where a number of people will have to pay more than what they would like to for a card from you.
That's true.
I am not saying you should go out and do that. Those people, I despise them.
Yeah, no, but I mean the rationale, I guess it makes sense if you're trying to kind of scrape some profits off these cards. I know like with TCG Player now, it's a much more publicized thing. Like you can kind of see the price trend history of a card. And
yeah.
I guess even if you're a seller, you can immediately see if like other sellers are selling this card for a significantly higher price. You gotta up your price to not miss out on too many of the profits.
I feel like the big Pokemon boom really changed the way that card game collectors, vendors, and players interact with websites like TCG Player.
Yes. Yeah.
Now it's scrutinized much more highly. People hate to miss the chance to make a profit.
Do you think TCG Player has done more harm or more good?
Within the first 3 years of TCG Player's existence, I think it did great things.
Yeah. I don't know what year it actually came out.
I don't remember either. But
yeah,
early on, TCG Player was nothing but good. I mean, it had issues, but it was a positive.
Good in what way?
As time has gone on, especially since they got purchased by eBay, it feels like TCG Player no longer exists to serve
the customer,
the card gamers.
So when you say good, when you say like it was good,
it made things convenient, or it made the ability to acquire cards much more convenient.
Yeah.
It was less impersonal than something like Troll and Toad or these like more common sites that we're using at the time, but they were usually they were just located somewhere. I think Troll and Toad was in Hawaii, which was not at all common to get cards, or not.
That was Ideal 808, I think.
Oh, Ideal 808, you're right. That was
Ideal
but I know what you're
talking. Yeah, Troll and Toad, Strike Zone.
Like
TCG Player was like an aggregate market.
Yeah, because these were brick and mortar situations. They would ship you like any card they had in stock, but it wasn't always convenient, and you didn't have any type of market forces to compete with those prices as much.
Yeah.
TCG Player put it all in one place, and then those cards could come from anywhere in the country, so you could get your cards a lot faster.
Yeah, and I do think that the market forces were a lot more present on TCG Player, because it's like, okay, any card shop can sell on TCG Player. And that's generally a good idea for you to do so. There are some card shops that make the majority of their money with online sales, not really even in-person sales. The thing is though, you are competing with all the other card shops. So I think it did help, at least at the start, to kind of push prices a little bit down, because it's all transparent. I mean, everybody can see that your shop is just charging more for this card than the next place is.
So I'll just buy it from
the other guy. From the next place. So like, you are encouraged, I think, to price as competitively as possible. And I mean, I also think that on a even just more broad level than that, people being able to have like a one-stop shop for card prices like helps with trades in person too.
Yeah, figuring out the value of cards before TCG Player was a bit of a pain because everybody had their own like source that they used to judge the value of a card.
Yeah, I remember that. That was always so
And
annoying.
like, it wasn't so bad if the prices weren't too different, but then if people were very prickly about the value and then getting trade value off of a
There'd
card,
always be people who would be like, you know, I use Troll and Toad for my prices, and someone else would be like, well, I use like eBay, and then eBay was ambiguous because it was like, do you use like sold eBay listings, or you use like auctions in progress, buy it now, like it was just always a little bit funky. And then like people would of course like, I use Troll and Toad prices for when I'm valuing my cards, but I use like eBay prices or something different when I'm valuing your cards, you know, that whole song and dance. And so like, I think TCG Player helped to kind of centralize things a little bit more.
I think the issue with TCG Player is it's kind of an unregulated market, and so I think it's rife with abuse. I mean, one, the buyouts. I think in a regulated market, it could be set up where you wouldn't let a few entities buy out all of a product, but TCG Player doesn't care who's buying and selling. They just want to make sure they get their cut. Then there's the like kind of the manipulation of prices, where in a truly free market, prices are dictated by supply and demand. But as card game players, we know there's a certain amount of price setting that goes on in this space, and if you're wholly beholden to TCG Player, there's not a lot you can do about it.
Yeah, I think like also it just turned everybody maybe into a bit of a speculative buyer. Like the fact that it's all so known and out there and publicized means that like even the average card gamer kind of wants to be a little bit of a speculative, like I don't know. I've kind of gotten that vibe more from people, but I don't think that's like really TCG Player's fault. It's just,
but it's a
like
culture that they've helped like perpetuate, I think.
Yeah, it's how like the culture in general is more like everyone's sort of a businessman.
I met a guy who was exactly what you described. At any moment on his phone, he would open up his browser, and he had like 20 different tabs of TCG Player listings for different cards, and he would just refresh them and check the price, because he had in his mind, these were cards he was watching, and he had a price in his mind that if he saw that card dip there, he'd buy it immediately. He didn't care if he didn't actually want the card. This would be a good price to buy this card at, because I believe I can sell it for much more.
Yeah, I mean, and like still, that's not to undermine just the general transparency of like noobs and like kind of casual players being able to know the price of their cards is a net good thing. Because I remember as a kid,
it was a net good thing, but now
now who knows?
The listings are muddied up because on TCG Player they let you list foreign cards and everything else. It makes the market price very confusing for a lot of products.
But still, I just remember like as a kid, like when I was first going to card shops, I got scammed a lot. Like literally, like just me and other friends and stuff. Like we just literally didn't know what cards are worth. There were like older players who had that knowledge, I guess, and they knew that like kids might just trade their secret rare from the new set for like a common reprint Blue Eyes.
Do you remember the Gold Binder Master Collection? It was a product. It was an old product. It came out with like
promo like
versions.
cards?
It was a Hades, Dark Necrofear.
Those old, okay.
Just barrel dragon. Just old shiny cardboard. And it was called Master Collection. It was in this golden binder, and it came with one pack of each of the I think the first 6 sets. And I remember we took all that with us to Toys R Us because we wanted to brag about, look at our new shiny cards. And then my brother and I, we left Toys R Us with I think 3 or 4 bags of commons.
Bulk.
And then without that binder, some older guy had convinced us to trade our like 6 like Master Collection promos for
just a sack of
400 commons.
Yeah. So that's why I do think that like just the ability to know the value and look it up quickly, which is like smartphones in general have helped us do that. There are also some miscellaneous factors that I suppose are worth a mention. The big one I think is probably reprints. So this is something that's Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Does actually more than a lot of other card games do. I did not know that. Because I've played Yu-Gi-Oh! For so much of my life that like when I look at other games and realize like a lot of them just don't reprint cards. Whether that's because they have like kind of a rotating game format where the idea of reprints isn't really as vital, or like the staples will get reprinted in some rotations but like other stuff just won't. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a lot more reprints.
Oh, pretty much, we're pretty aggressive about it.
And so like, usually you can kind of feel certain that a reprint will come for a card and it will just naturally force the price down. It doesn't always work that way because like there's different ways something can get reprinted. Like if it's reprinted as an ulti in an OTS pack, that's probably not decreasing the price of the card.
I know. I feel like we used to be better about reprints in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where, let's say 10 years ago, typically when a card got its needed reprint, it was a lower rarity and it was easier to get your hands on. But I find in the modern day of reprints, it's likely if a card, if it's a staple secret, like let's say like a Dominus card, its first reprint will also be secret.
They have been doing that more lately. I think there's ups and downs to like today's reprints. Today, you pretty much, and I say today relative to like 2009 when I was playing, let's say. Today, you pretty much know that like every card's gonna get a reprint. It is a given that these cards will get reprint. There are a lot of reprint sets. There's tins, there's like Battles of Legend, there's usually like a maze set or something. We've gotten a bunch of rarity collections. So a card getting reprinted isn't a question mark anymore.
Right.
I remember when I used to play, it kind of felt a lot more, maybe that was just because I was new and not used to the whole product calendar and all that. But like back then I felt like you didn't know if a card was gonna get reprinted, or you certainly didn't know when. And nowadays you can kind of just, you know when it's gonna happen. I still think though that even with that in mind, Konami does sort of like to reprint stuff, like you said, in the same rarity. And so then at that point it's like,
it's barely a reprint.
It will bring the price down, but like not that low. So
like if you struggle to get copies of its first secret printing, you'll probably still struggle the second time.
Now, you know, there are people who don't like reprints.
Well,
they don't like that reprints happen. I spent a lot of money on this card, Alec, and I don't want it to get reprinted because it makes me feel like the money I spent was wasted.
In the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, I feel like there's not much space for that mindset because we've been so reprint heavy in the last decade that's such an old mindset for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community.
Antiquated.
I don't think it's too relevant. But you know, I've dived into a lot of Bandai card games where they don't reprint half as much, like maybe not even a quarter as much as Yu-Gi-Oh! Reprints.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my like Bandai cards will hold a value for much longer than their playability, and that's been a nice feeling. And then when Bandai does do their almost random reprints, it kind of hurts a little bit. I'm like, oh.
Are they really random? Like, does it feel?
Because like they'll make a reprint set like once every like 2 years or something. Like it does not happen very often. And so I'll have a card and it's like it's been comfortably sitting at like $40 on TCG Player for months, and I'm just like, yep, I don't play this card anymore, but boy, does it look good in the binder.
Yeah.
Then the reprint comes, I'm like, oh.
Yu-Gi-Oh! So I've had to take on this new mentality around like reprints with Yu-Gi-Oh! So full transparency, I don't actually really buy and sell cards much myself. Like, I guess I buy cards for myself, but I do not sell them usually.
But will you sell them for someone else?
Like, what do you mean?
Because you'll buy for yourself, so you must sell for someone else.
No, that's certainly not happening. But what I was gonna say is just like, okay, I don't mind if I have to spend a lot of money on a card. I don't really mind it getting reprinted. It doesn't bother me very much. But like the new mindset that I have adopted is like value of money spent in Yu-Gi-Oh! Comes from card being played and you getting results. A card's, you know it's going to get reprinted. The reason why you like buy it early on is because you plan to play it. So like if you spend a bunch of money on a new deck or a new staples, my advice to people is always like, get your ass to some regionals.
Right.
Like some regionals with an S. Because if you like this card and you're like, oh, what, it's like 80 bucks, but I guess I'll bite the bullet and spend 80 bucks. And you bite the bullet and you spend 80 bucks and you go to locals every other week and kind of like whatever. And then 9 months later, a reprint happens and you're acting mad. It's like, well, you knew that was gonna happen. So what you should do is like, if you're gonna spend that much money, get your ass to a regional and play. Like get that lived experience and value out of the card, because that's honestly the best Yu-Gi-Oh is going to do for you.
It's interesting. So the mentality that you're describing has existed in Yu-Gi-Oh for a very long time, but the reason why I think has changed over the years.
Okay.
So like you were talking about modern day reprints being the reason why you should play your cards to get value out of them. But before we started getting the more rapid reprints that we have, it was the ban list that made you think in exactly the same way.
That's true. That is so true.
If a card was very good and you bought it, you need to hurry up and play it because and this has always been true for Yu-Gi-Oh, that ban list is coming.
Yeah.
And it will not spare you.
Yeah. Yeah, the ban list will come, and I mean, literally once a card's like banned or its deck is limited.
And that'll drive its price right down.
Yeah, it'll just force the price down. Because Yu-Gi-Oh is a game that is, as we established up front, it's pretty much entirely based on playability.
It's a player's game.
Yeah, unlike maybe Magic or Pokemon that kind of have more of a collector component to them, Yu-Gi-Oh is just like, is it playable or is it not? Do you need it to win a tournament or do you not?
I've said this anecdote many times and I'll say it again. El Shaddoll Construct. What year was that with Shaddolls? That was
2014,
2014. So I was still only just learning how these things worked in Yu-Gi-Oh. I really wanted to play a Shaddoll deck. Yeah. And we were at either a regional or a YCS.
Some regional in like August.
Yeah, it was a regional. And for some reason, the vendors were finally selling Construct at a price I could actually afford.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is literally the only card I need for my Shaddoll deck. I picked up 2 copies. And I was so happy. I was overjoyed. I'm pretty sure I showed you the same day.
Good deal.
And then the ban list was announced maybe a week later. Yeah. It was not long.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like everybody kind of learns the hard way. The ban hammer can come down and destroy your investment. So in Yu-Gi-Oh, that's why I've always just been like, if you spend the money on the card, you better play it because there's just an intangible value, I guess, that you get from playing it and doing well because the shit's getting reprinted.
But that's another reason why I think, especially in the modern day, why vendors and like players, they charge so much for a card because of reprints and because of the ban list. If you don't get paid for that card right now, you can't be, it's not promised that you're gonna be able to sell that card 2 months down the road for the same amount.
Yeah, there's tight windows of time that you have to kind of be ready to quickly act on a sale and all this stuff. A few other little quick things. There is sort of like a waifu tax. I feel like there's not much to say about it other than like if it's a cute anime girl, it's probably gonna cost more.
But it also helps that Konami tends to make the waifu also one of your linchpins of the strategy.
Yeah, I remember somebody saying, it was like maybe Farfa or someone, was like, the only reason people don't want like a card like IP Masquerena to get banned is because she's a girl. Like, this is a period of time where people are kind of like, maybe IP should get banned, like in Master Duel a few years ago. And like, the joke that people make is like, if IP Masquerena's art had a picture of Gale Dogra on it. Right? Imagine same card, same effect, same stats, same everything, but just an ugly old style creature, right? Just some old Yu-Gi-Oh!
God.
People would be like, oh, you like ban this, why is this not banned? Like, it's funny, I mean, imagine, people might even be like softer on a card like Maxi if it was like a cute anime girl or something.
No, the way they froth at the mouth at the mention of Maxi, I just don't think so.
I don't know, but I think that people might still go a little easier on it. The point is though, people do like, you know, little factors like that, like waifu cards, anime cards kind of tend to, they'll usually get a default level of more interest than like normal, right, just from being, you know, an anime card.
At that point, it's attracting a different market.
Yeah. I also was noting that I feel like manga promos, back when they did those, they don't do them anymore.
That's not really a thing anymore.
And like event cards and that sort of stuff, kind of, they follow slightly different rules.
Yeah.
Game promos.
I mean, what would that be? Engineered scarcity for those promos, right?
Yeah. And it's a little bit different just because it's like, well, you get it if you buy the manga. So it's not like you have to pull the card. It is like a guaranteed thing as opposed to like a not guaranteed thing.
But it's guaranteed to not be as many copies in the wild.
Exactly. So I have to like find the manga. I remember in the old days when like people would like tear up mangas.
Oh,
like,
constantly.
You see those
they were
cards
always
just
doing
ripped
it.
right out of them, and
I used to
even when the mangas were sealed in like plastic wrapped.
Because I was a big reader, so I would go to every bookstore in every town I visited, and I would always check the manga and then the Y sections praying to find a sealed Yu-Gi-Oh manga.
Yeah.
Mission impossible.
It was always really tough. Because I remember there have been some really like huge manga promos across the years. Like early on, I think Thunder King Ryo was like a manga thing.
Yeah.
I remember Shonen Jump, I think was maybe how you got Stratos initially?
Yeah, Shonen Jump had a few
Stratos,
good ones.
Tragodia. I know Red Eyes, Darkness, Metal Dragon, and Dandelion were Shonen Jump subscriber exclusives.
Now, I remember that one was a...
Yeah, those are a bitch to get.
So I'll always be salty about that because I sent one of those postcards and I didn't get anything back.
Yeah, those are really tough. I mean, because I remember like some of them were like Tragoedia. I remember I got that from just like a regular, you could just find it in any issue.
Yeah.
So I remember I go to this old store in this small town I lived in called Fred's. It was like a little dollar store type thing. And I got a Tragodia from that. And I went to the library a few days later and I was like, when did you get that? I was like, it was new and different at the time. Those old cards, I mean, they got price tags. Some of the newer ones I remember, like, what was the Utopia form? Utopia the Lightning.
Utopia, yeah.
Yeah, Utopia the Lightning. That was a big one. You had to get it from a manga.
And that I remember that one specifically because people were ravenously hunting that manga down. It was rough trying to find one in the wild.
Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, I think.
That was another good
came
one.
in a manga, and that was
think
like
so.
a hard one to get. So they don't do that anymore. It's kind of a shame. And also, we barely get new Yu-Gi-Oh video games, so there's none of that in any of them either.
But boy, were there some fire ones.
Do you know Harpy's Feather Duster first came in a video game?
I always forget that it first came.
Imagine that. How hard that'd be to get.
Well, I mean, if you were a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, if you were a real Yu-Gi-Oh fan, you know.
That's true.
Your parents would buy you that game.
Which most of us were real Yu-Gi-Oh fans, but also our parents would not buy us games on demand. So.
They did not. That was actually my biggest issue with getting the Shonen Jump subscription cards because I had a Shonen Jump subscription through my mom, but I couldn't figure out how to convince her to immediately renew the subscription now so that I qualify for the card.
So yeah, I mean, that's anything else? I guess we kind of covered.
Yeah, I mean,
we wanted to cover.
Tariffs. I think we kind of got into. I think we really got into like why Yu-Gi-Oh cards are expensive, why Yu-Gi-Oh has historically been expensive and will continue to be expensive.
The last thing I guess I want to like end out on too is it's actually always been this way. I know that there is sort of a belief that people have. I think it's kind of one of those like toxic nostalgia things where like we imagine this time we're on the playground of the early 2000s where like Yu-Gi-Oh wasn't expensive. But I was actually talking to some people who played back then, like Jonathan Moore from House of Champs. I was asking him about this. I was like, how much were cards like back then? And he was like, yeah, Mechanical Chaser was like $100 or something like that. Like you had to have like 3, and like Chaos Emperor and Dragon was like $60. You know, a lot of those old like staple spell and traps
Mechanical Chaser, big
hard to get.
$100.
But that was, I mean, it was a tournament pack only card, and it had 1850, and we talked about this in that other video.
Yeah,
like,
I think
about power
my
creep.
first time getting a Mechanical Chaser, it was a structure deck card, I think in the machine deck.
Yeah, it later got reprints, but man, when it came out, you know. So the point I'm trying to make though is just that like Yu-Gi-Oh has always had like, it's always been hard to play the top tier thing. When I got in, it was Teledad, and like Dark Arm Dragon was like $150, E-Tailers were like $60, Destiny Draw, and all these things. Like, this isn't like a new development. Like Yu-Gi-Oh got too expensive. It's always been on the high end to play the best strats. So, you know, just a thing. I don't really have much more of a point to it, just that it's always been this way. So.
But if you'd like to hear our other points, maybe try out one of our other yapping videos.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking like if we should have like a name for these videos. We haven't named them. We just
Team Yappies.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know, but the point is we have made a bunch more of these videos. If you want to hear us talk Yu-Gi-Oh for an hour, that's what we should call it, Yu-Gi-Oh for an hour.
Yeah, why not?
Very
It's
bland
very
name.
descriptive.
We have a playlist for that up there. YouTube suggests one of them that you should watch, so go ahead and have a click. And remember, let us know down in the comments how much you spent on Yu-Gi-Oh cards. What do you think about this whole ecosystem? And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Pass turn.